You were listening to Pierre Poilievre, conservative leader there in New York City, delivering a keynote address to the Harvard Club, speaking about why Canada and the U.S. should draw closer together in this era, making the case for why Trump's tariffs should be lifted on Canadian goods. We're told he was speaking to a crowd of about 110 people there, some enthusiastic response at the end for the message that he brought. A lot of similar messaging to what he actually said earlier in the day on the Joe Rogan podcast as well, speaking about critical minerals, speaking about defense ties, speaking about how Canada really has what the United States needs in this era. Let's bring in our reporter roundtable. Bob Fife is the Ottawa bureau chief for the Globe and Mail. Mia Rabson is the deputy parliamentary bureau chief at the Canadian Press. And Joël Denis Bellavance is the parliamentary bureau chief for La Presse. Okay, guys, so thanks for being here. Nice to see you all. I see your bright, shining faces. Bob, I'll start with you. What did you make of what we just heard from Mr. Poilievre in New York City?
Well, I think he gave a very positive Canadian message to the Americans that we are your closest neighbor, we're your best trading partner, we cooperate with you militarily, we are in a difficult situation now, and here are the reasons why you should continue to want to work with Canada. Best example, perhaps, was the aluminum that are used for the Ford pickup trucks.
Yep.
You know, they don't have enough aluminum, and there's 50% tariffs on it. So U.S. manufacturers are paying 50% tariffs. That's going to go into the pocketbooks of American consumers. I think it was a really positive message. I don't think there would be really any reason for Prime Minister Mark Carney to be concerned about that. He clearly tried to differentiate himself slightly from the Carney doctrine, which is that the American relationship is ruptured. He's saying, look, it's never going to be ruptured. We're in a difficult period of time right now, but because we live beside each other, how can we rupture our relationship?
Yeah, I'm here today to restore and renew our friendship and bring affordability, security, and strength to the people of our two great countries. There is like a tonal shift, right? It's not quite what you're hearing from Mark Carney right now.
Yeah, that's right. And I find it interesting that Mr. Poilievre started his speech by quoting or citing Barry Mulroney. Mr. Mulroney is one of the most known politicians in the United States, was invited to present the eulogy to the funeral at George W. Bush.
Yeah,
even
George W. Bush.
George Father Bush, and also Nancy Reagan when she passed away. So twice.
And Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, yeah, sorry, also. So by quoting Mr. Mulroney, I think he wants to instill some kind of a confidence-building relationship between Canada and the United States, because Mr. Mulroney is seen as the one who really brought the relationship closer together with the free trade deals that he concluded.
Yeah, Mia?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it certainly doesn't hurt Mr. Poilievre to have done this. I think it's as much for a domestic audience as it is for an American audience, but he's giving a message to the Americans from a conservative perspective. So, you know, some might be more willing to listen or be open to sort of what he has to say. But he's had a lot of criticism that he hasn't done a lot of outreach to the Americans or outside of Canada. And so we saw him, he went to Europe earlier this month, now he's in the United States. So he's trying to bring a statesman side to his politics and to his career that we haven't really seen from him. So this trip and this speech are both obviously for the American audience, but it's also got a domestic component as well.
Yeah, so after essentially ignoring this issue, right, more or less for the last year, not really wanting to address Trump head on, we're seeing that that's really not the messaging anymore, right, Bob? I mean, like, just listening to some of the text in his speech, we can talk about Joe Rogan now if you want as well, because that was, obviously this wasn't an only stop today in the United States, or I guess he spoke to Joe Rogan yesterday, but he was sat down in Austin, Texas. They spoke about the relationship with this sometimes controversial podcaster, Joe Rogan, right? And they really went over where things are at. And I was kind of struck by how he did take on Trump a bit today, more than he, certainly to my ears, he has in the past, telling him to knock this SHIT off when it comes to the 51st state stuff. Actually, we have a clip. Let's play it.
So I think it's in America's interest to come towards a tariff-free deal and trade freely as friends. And that will be good for both of us.
Have you had conversations with Trump about this?
No. I believe in the rule of one prime minister at a time. So I fought like hell to win. I didn't win. We came very close. So I've said, listen, I'll leave it to the prime minister to do the negotiating. And I've said I'll support him any way I can. Even in my visit down here, I'm sending him text messages to tell him what's going on, to try and support his work, because what we both want what's best for Canada.
Yeah, so Bob, I mean, definitely he's addressing this issue when perhaps before he kind of ran away from it, right? I mean, this whole week is about like leaning into the U.S. issue, kind of taking a stand on these things and showing the voters here at home that it's not just Mark Carney that can engage on these issues, right? Is that a fair assessment?
Well, yeah, look, I think it's really important for Mr. Poilievre, if he's going to come back from pretty dismal numbers right now, that he has to take a very positive, Canada is not broken viewpoint, which is what he'd been arguing for the last year or so before the election campaign. He's got to take a message to the Americans, but to the Canadian public, that he believes in the unity of this country. He believes in the ability of this country to trade not only abroad but with the United States, and to cooperate with the Americans. And you know, some people thought, well, why is he going on Joe Rogan, who's a very conservative podcaster? Well, the guy has 20 million viewers. He speaks for a lot of the MAGA folks, and he himself is becoming disillusioned with Donald Trump. So I think it's a good message on the part of Mr. Poilievre to go on that podcast, to give a very strong Canadian message, and also to be very supportive of the Prime Minister. And you know, he doesn't like what Trump's doing with his 51st state nonsense, but he's saying, look, it's up to the Prime Minister to do these negotiations. I'm not here to do that. All in all, for me, it seemed like, is this guy beginning to finally mature and grow up?
I was going to say the same thing as well. Mr. Poilievre, I think on the podcast, showed that he's part of Team Canada by revealing that he's texting the Prime Minister while he's on this trip.
Yeah.
That was fascinating. I didn't know that they were exchanging text messages. I'm looking forward to see what Mr. Carney is responding to his text message. But he showed that he can be a Team Canada player. And this is really important because we've seen in the past election that the relationship between Canada and the United States was the biggest problem for Mr. Poilievre and his party. How to adjust to the new reality with somebody in Washington that is clearly trying to hurt Canada's economy, but also Canada's very existence. So Mr. Poilievre, as Bob pointed out, I think is maturing into his Prime Minister in waiting status as leader of the opposition. So I think all in all, this is a good visit for him.
That was really revelatory for me, Mia, to hear that he texts the Prime Minister. I mean, I didn't know this. I mean, maybe you guys have better sources than I do on that one, but I hadn't heard that. And also his comment that he has there's mutual respect between the two of them. And then even when he was kind of given the opportunity to crap on him by Joe Rogan, he was quite definitive, as we heard in that clip. I won't criticize the Prime Minister on foreign soil. I thought that was deferential. And we're really not used to hearing that sort of language from Mr. Poilievre, right?
I cannot imagine him making that statement if Justin Trudeau was still the Prime Minister, first of all. So I think we've seen an evolution in Canadian politics on that front. And the relationship between the opposition and the government is a bit better than it was, a year and a half ago. And the fact that he wouldn't criticize the Prime Minister to that audience, I think, really showed his Team Canada approach. Joe Rogan threw the door open for him. He could have done it. He didn't. And so I think it really underscored that he was there to send the Team Canada message and to sort of be, I'm not here fighting against it. It also suggests to me that he has finally understood why Canadians got kind of irritated with him and didn't really pick him or think that he was the one to do it last winter, because he wasn't saying these kinds of things. He was maybe not saying things at all, but he did not have that, the elbows up mentality that Canadians really, really wanted last winter. And Joe Rogan asked him about it directly, like, well, you were like 20 points up, like, why did you lose? And he didn't quite get as specific as I think most of us know what happened, but, he acknowledged that, at that point, Mark Carney was the man the Canadians chose. There's one Prime Minister, and he's going to let him do most of the talking, but he's going to be there to support him. And I think that's important.
Yeah, well, let's look at the raw politics of this, too. I mean, the Liberals are 14% or more ahead of the Liberals.
Let's actually pull up. We got the charts here, Bob. You can keep going. We'll show people at home.
Well, I want to make sure I use the right numbers. But he's about, and in terms of Prime Minister preference, he's at least 25 to 29% over.
Yeah.
So
Leger's got 14. 49 for the Liberals, 35.
So clearly, the approach he was using ain't working.
Yeah.
And every time there's a new poll, the Liberals keep going up. So the Prime Minister's approach to dealing with Donald Trump and trying to diversify trade away from the United States is working. And Mr. Poilievre is, in his brain trust, I think, are finally realizing that their old way of doing it was only selling them, keep them going down to the basement. And we've got to rebuild and try to convince Canadians that we can be as responsible and maybe even more responsible than Mark Carney when the next election comes around.
In French, there is a saying that les voyages forment la jeunesse, meaning traveling brings you wisdom. I mean, I'm looking forward to what Mr. Poilievre will bring back to the House of Commons after his trip to London, to Berlin, and now in the United States. Will he bring more concrete solutions to the Canada-US relationship? That should be interesting. Will he bring also a new behavior towards the Prime Minister? Now that we know he texts with him, that does it, you know, is it new? Is it only during that trip, or has it been going on for a while? It may introduce a new dynamics in the House of Commons between Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Carney.
Surely not a floor crossing.
Well, and to Bob's point about the domestic politics, I mean, we've also seen a shift from the Conservatives and the other parties recently to be more cooperative in the House, because those numbers that we were just looking at on the TV, they do not want an election right now. And so they know that they have to sort of be a bit more cooperative. And that might work for them, because right now I think a lot of Canadians, they want stability here because there is everything but stability everywhere else.
Well, when we look at the last trade negotiations in Trump's first administration, there was bipartisan cooperation.
Even with the NDP.
Everybody was cooperating because it's too damn important for the economy. And it's taken him a while to get to that point, but I think he's there now.
What I think is interesting is he's actually now emulating some of Carney's wording around these things, right? Because he even said today, Canada is not for sale. We want to be sovereign. Like some of the Maître chez nous, which he keeps using in French, which obviously, you know, Carney kind of resurrected, right, from and using in a very different context than its original purpose, I think. But, you know, literally mimicking word for word in some instances the Prime Minister's messaging on this very issue. So obviously, to Bob's point, like they're looking at the polls, they're seeing that Carney's had some success by taking on Trump, by taking on the U.S., by being more direct in his messaging about the fate of the U.S. relationship. And Poilievre is saying, okay, just as you stole some of my policies and implemented them when you got into government on bail and carbon tax, and you can go on, I'm going to take all of your language on this issue that's working out well for you, right? That's what I keep hearing.
And it may mean that Mr. Poilievre is trying to bring the Conservative Party a bit more to the center, center-right, like the Prime Minister Mark Carney did. He brought the Liberal Party back to the center as a centrist party, more center-right, I would say.
Unfortunately, how many times have we said that?
A lot.
You know?
It's true.
And we think he's going to move, and then all of a sudden the old DNA kicks in, and there he's back doing the...
Well, and he struggled on the podcast a little bit as Joe Rogan was going into some conspiracy theories about the Freedom Convoy and COVID and things like that. He didn't challenge him on certain parts of those conspiracy theories, although interestingly, he did very quickly challenge him about a conspiracy theory about the former Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. He didn't let that one stand, and that's something his party is sort of allowed to filter around, especially on social media. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, he immediately said, no, Fidel Castro was not
Justin Trudeau's
father. You know, trust me, I knew who his father was, Pierre Trudeau, and that's why I got into politics. I thought that was actually an interesting pivot, a very skilled pivot away from that question that Joe Rogan asked him, and saying like, no, if you want to know how I got involved in politics, it was because of PET, right?
And because of Preston Manning being quirky.
And actually, though, on the convoy thing, what I thought was interesting is when Joe Rogan said, you know, what you got going on up there in Canada is crazy. At least Poilievre did at that point say, well, those things are gone. Like those measures have been lifted. We're not living in this COVID hellscape anymore, whatever. You know.
Well, even what he said about ICE, he said, you know, we don't want that kind of ICE tactics up in Canada. We've got an immigration problem. We're dealing with it. Which we are dealing with it, and I thought it was very effective. Mind you, it was also nice to know that Joe Rogan likes Canadian maple syrup.
Syrup.
And I wonder if that means our sales of syrup into the United States is going to go.
We've got a strategic reserve.
That's
on
right.
maple syrup. Remember?
We do.
We're ready.
Vermont producers
We're ready
might
for
be a
that.
little irritated by that comment.
All right. We are so ready. We have the reserve, and Joe Rogan can take as much maple syrup as he wants. All right. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much to Bob Fife, Mia Rabson, and Joël Denis Bellevance. That was our great journal panel today. Really nice to see you guys. Thanks for weighing in on all that stuff.